your own words, what is the mission of the Angel Foundation?
Well, as they said here, making a difference. You know, we send so many children overseas. We've given so many children hope. For us just to make that difference in one child, that's already accomplishment.
If you look at the ideal beneficiary of the Angel Foundation, it is someone that is talented on a cultural level, on a leadership level, on an academic level.
Meeting the needs of the less fortunate. I think that's that's always been the primary goal, because our kids are not always able to and doesn't always have the means to, and that's where they come in as catalysts to persist in that.
Every single thing we do has a child at the center of it, at the heart of it. And I think sometimes that's something that our community forgets, is that everything we do is for the benefit of a child. And that still rings so true to me up until today.
The Angel Foundation is celebrating 10 years of community service this year. Let's take a moment to reflect back on how they came about, the impact they have had on the community, and who are behind this organization. I'm Emre, and this is the Angel Foundation. What was the conversation that prompted you and Mark to establish the Angel Foundation as we know it today?
Wow, what a good question. Now, looking back, obviously, I think you've heard a lot about Mark and his drive for the upliftment of others. And I think in meeting him with my already passion for community, passion for women, passion for upliftment, and having been involved, at various fora, quite abroad South Africa at that point in time, and having met him and his passionate way of going about a very similar agenda, when we sort of looked at the regress in our society, and especially both coming from Hedendal, looking at the regress and especially how a wrong agenda was taking over in amongst the young people. Mark would literally just calling it stagnation of, young people, stagnation of our community. And if you look at the broader colored community, not just Hedendal, just look at, South Africa for that matter, you find that we find ourselves in a very polarized society economically, finding ourselves at the back end as the so-called colored community. And that was a major concern for him. His bigger agenda was also looking at the mixed race across the globe, across the world, and finding similar challenges in the mixed race community, and which was no different from what was at that point in time happening in Hedendal. And Mark felt that we needed to do something to address, the stagnation of the talent of our youth, and especially because for him was the fact that so many colored people, because of policy in the country, we found ourselves in a disposition that because parents did not have jobs or could not get jobs, that directly and indirectly impacted families, it impacted young people. And at that point in time, we then said, well, if we cannot make a difference, to the entire South Africa, maybe if we just start with something small in Hedendal or at home, we would be able to make a difference.
The first beneficiary, before the foundation was even really a foundation, was Angelique's younger daughter, because I remember she had to travel for some sporting event, and that's how the conversation basically started. That's how the whole thing came about. I think that process, because it was the inception, or it was kind of like the thing that made the foundation come into existence.
Good afternoon. Can you please introduce yourself?
Afternoon, my name is Roseanne from Bloemfontein. I'm currently an attorney, and
What is your story as the reason why we are all here?
Okay. Fantastic. So, what a question that is. So, if you look at the ideal beneficiary of the Angel Foundation, it is someone that is talented on a cultural level, on a leadership level, on an academic level. And so, I must say that I believe I form part of the constitution of this amazing organization. So just a short background about myself. So like I said, throughout my high school years, I performed culturally. I was overseas for all kinds of cultural things, sports. My main goal was to obtain my Springbok colors, and I sure did do that. Also leadership-wise, I was the leader and the captain of most of the organizations in my school. Outside of school, I really did quite well, if I must say so myself. And so what had happened was I got my matric, and I was actually selected as one of the top 40 matrics in South Africa. And I actually ended up in second place in that competition. And what had happened was I got a bursary from COFSIS, UFS, and so I started my first year at the University of Free State. So I was now elected. I finally now obtained my dream goal, which was to become a Springbok and get my Springbok colors. And so the time came for me now to go and represent my country finally. And so who do I run to firstly? Is my mom. And so what happened is she went from pillar to post, literally asking around everyone to assist in footing this humongous goal.
Which was about 30,000 that we needed to raise for her. We then, because we also then at that point submitted so many applications, which I think so many parents do, that find themselves needy of funds to assist their children, to travel or to further develop their talent. So what happened was, Angelo Moki, a friend of mine and Mark, had come up with a concept to host a benefits concert. So at the time we didn't know how to. Luckily, Angelo had the know-how, and so with his idea, with our networks, with our friends and families wanting to support us, we formalized, this benefits concert.
They came together, they put this brilliant concert together, and they said, listen here, you must cultural excellence, you perform at the show. And that was actually one of my very first shows on a proper big stage. That's actually how we got to foot the bill for me to go and represent South Africa.
We then had the money, but then the university would not allow her because she had to travel during exam time. And so we were then faced now with a practical challenge in that we had raised the 30,000. She's no longer traveling. What do you now do with the money?
I also know that it was throughout this time that Uncle Mark mentioned to my mom, Angelique, listen, lady, have you ever thought of actually putting together this organization called the Angel Foundation?
And I think, as I would always like to say, that's where my passion was harnessed to Mark's dedication, and the minute those two things came together, we now have what is formally called the Angel Foundation. We then recruited a board of directors to assist us in running this concept. We then drafted the constitution. We then put together an operations committee that would ensure, we had the execution of what is formally now the Angel Foundation.
At first, he didn't have an office, so he was operating from my business.
So we have a fully donated office to the foundation, and then we then had subcommittees of the board that looked after making sure the resolutions of the board were executed, and that's how we formalized this, and that was the whole conversation. Thank you.
is there anything specific that you remember from Mark growing up?
Yeah, Mark was a really remarkable person, and I get goosebumps when I talk about it.
The last couple of years, I had the opportunity to grow a lot closer to my cousin, brother, mentor, friend. And I can still remember his Sunday visits to me, especially at my home. You know, one of his big passions in life was music. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows Mark. It was one of his loves of his life. So then we would have often sat and listened to music, you know, maybe reminiscing about the good old days.
Mark had a very kind of love for music, very deep love for music, and it goes across genres.
Mark's passion was altyd die musiek. Altyd musiek. As jy instap, waar jy altyd weet, wat 'n nuwe musiek was daar. Wat 'n nuwe musiek het ek. Wat kan ek vir hom download? Wat kan ek vir hom wees en so.
First of all, Mark was very, you could feel his presence. When Mark was around, you could feel and sense his presence. Mark wasn't loud, but you could feel he was there.
Hy was 'n open mens, open-minded person. Hy het alles, 'n stukkie van alles geken.
Mark is a thinker. Mark was a visionary. Mark was a very passionate person. He is very honest and very intelligent. He was very intelligent.
Mark was an avid reader. He actually got that from my grandfather and eventually he handed it down to me as well.
They had lots of books lying around and we spent hours and hours in Mark's room reading.
My grandfather always used to say, if people want to hide something from a black man, they hide it in a book. So we were made curious from a young age to see what people are hiding.
Having grown up in front of Mark, with Mark, it's a very deep question for me, and his passion for people was what actually drive his whole life. Ek meen, hy is 'n persoon wat met almal kon meet, as ons dit so maar sê.
He always had other people's best interest at mind. He was always the first to lend a hand. A funny story that I can share was not a funny, endearing story that I can share was at a Makufe event. We were all still standing there. I cannot remember. I think it was at the Rose Garden. And so there was this one guy that misjudged himself with the distance to the lakeside and rushed into the water and apparently couldn't swim. Now me being the swimmer in the family, unfortunately I had a camera around my neck, a lot of cell phones on me. As I was getting ready to take off all this thing, pop, there goes Mark. And so he saved that guy's life that day. I remember the next Makufe attending an event like that, and that guy running up to Mark, "Hey, my friend!" He actually remembered Mark saving his life. And so it's one of the things that I usually talk about and think about whenever I approach things is do not ever always get bogged down into still wondering what you have to take out of your pocket and what when there's life at stake. He's just one of those guys that didn't care. And he also had devices in his pocket that he had what to damage at the end of the day, but he put that first.
Okay.
Put saving the guy's life first. So that's just the type of guy that Mark was.
My fondest memory of Uncle Mark would definitely be, as I spoke about earlier, was the Benefits concert, my very first performance. And I think I was getting like extremely bitter jitters. Like I was so excited, but I was also so nervous about what's happening next. And he was absolutely all about, you go up there and you go show them why you are the beginning of this thing. And so with every performance after that, he made sure that I understood, listen here, you're talented, girl. Go show them. And most importantly, go make us proud. because you're not only carrying your own name, you're carrying Angel Foundation's name.
Mark had a very, very brilliant mind. Very, very, very sharp.
Mark was a visionary man. He always used to see things behind the mountain. You understand?
You know, Mark, his mind was like a mine. He also had a lot of wisdom. You could put any topic in front of Mark, and Mark will outline it for you. It doesn't matter if it is politics or it was there. He also has done a lot of research. You would have never found Mark that he was always prepared. Whatever you could ask him, he was ready. That was the person that I know that is Mark Murison, and also
he had a passion for soccer, for all sports actually. Soccer was close to his heart. He eventually started the football team as well and changed the lives of young men in my community by giving them a platform where they can positively live out their hopes and their dreams.
Mark was the kind of person who truly curated every aspect of his life, whether it was the food that he loved to cook or the music that he listened to, the books he read, just these philosophies in life. So I think that really sort of sketches the person of somebody who was passionate about every element of his life, because that is how important it was to him. So from an Angel Foundation perspective, I think for him was really the opportunities for the children in our community and making it a reality for them.
Uncle Mark used to be this amazing wordsmith that, would put any words together and you'd be like, how did you come up with that? And it just made sense in the moment. And for him to come up with the word Angel Foundation, he always said, listen, your mom is such an inspiration. The way she cares about the community, the way she cares about what lies before us, making a positive impact. Because not everyone's story is as rosy as you'd want them to be.
And Angelique. Yeah, and Angelique, I think I can write a book about. She's a phenomenal woman and inspiration. And Angelique, I've always heard about her a lot in Idadal. People will talk about this woman who is doing these magical things in Idadal. When I first met Angelique, it was about 18, 19 years ago, and I thought to myself, my first impression of her was, wow, what a woman. What a woman. Herself and my mom were both single mothers. We met when they moved next to our house. So that's when I met Angelique and her two daughters. We had a few encounters and I was like, wow. I actually mistaken her for a teacher at the time because she was so well spoken, and the kids that knew her because she used to help out at Olympia said, okay, no, Miss Kim. So I thought she was a teacher. Very well spoken, very articulate, very loving, very kind, a mother.
So I've known Angelique all my life. I was even a bridesmaid when Angelique got married. So our relationship started back then. But when I was exposed, even when I stayed in Johannesburg for a few years, she was working at Eskom. So I've seen her in a different formats in terms of the businesswoman, the mother, the community member, and then the founding member of the foundation. My recollection of Angelique is when I see her, I see boldness, and I see a go-getter approach in terms of character, and also going to the untested markets and going to do things that normally people would not do, and she likes to travel the road less traveled. That is just within her. But unfortunately, also by being bold as a female, it's nice for people, but it can also come with its consequences, because I'm also a victim of it. But when I see Angelique, I see that, and I see tenacity, resilience, and determination, and perseverance to keep at it. And that's how I would sum up the founding member, Angelique.
However, growing up with my mother, the one thing that really stood out to me about her was where she placed people in her life and helping people where she can. I think my mom is also one of those people that if you had to walk with her in the street right now, every second person would stop her, would greet her, would have something to say to her. And that just really speaks volumes about where she places people in her life. And that is how that is also translated to the Angel Foundation and being able to serve in that capacity for 10 years.
And then I met Angelique actually through my dad. And by coincidence, Angelique was also a colleague of my husband at ESCOM. So ever since there, the relationship just started getting stronger, and we became close through the organization as Angel Foundation. And today I call her a family friend, a mother. She's a mother figure to me as well. We had many serious talks. There were many tears, but many laughters as well.
Angelique is very, very driven. I remember when we grew closer, me and her daughters, I always used to ask what it's like, what is it like to have a mom like Angelique? Because she's always busy, always helping everybody, always looking out for the needy. I remember this one year, I think that's my fondest memory, or my most vivid memory, was this one year. She wasn't staying in Bloemfontein at the time, but she used to come home weekends. Then there was the False Blood Idol of the Year competition. Then she was nominated, and then Nicole came to me laughing and said, "Look here, my mom has been nominated, and now she's declining this nomination." And I was like, "No, how can she decline?" She was like, "No, she doesn't feel she deserves it." So for me, that it was her modesty and her selflessness, that like she's doing community work unofficially, but she's doing it out of the goodness of her heart and not to get recognition.
Ik heb Angelique gezien toen zij er al verjaard geworden. En zo het ik, als een klein wereld, en ken haar dochters. En aan Luma is ook een baie goede vriendin van haar, is een neighbors van mijn mensen wat ik vrienden was. En Omak is een goede vriendin van mijn pa. So, hulle se relationship vir my was baie merkwaardig. Maar die feit dat hulle was baie soos vriende. Hulle het ons welkom voel. Hulle het gelag, lyk of hulle nie in 'n verhouding was nie. En ek kan iemand onthou, het hulle ons vergeet om ons 'n award hier te gee. En toe sê ek verlater na jy dat vergeet en toe sê hom maak vir my, Miles, jy gaan saam met my die bottle Jameson drink. Wow, dit was nou vir my die lekkerste ding. Ek het so worry van hy award nie. Ek kon nou Jameson saam met hom drink. En dat was bij die nice van alles. En op een dag Angelique het my na 50ste verjaardag toegenooi, was 'n gas. So ek dink dat wat hulle begin dit saam. Ek dink dat was 'n goeie konsep. Dit was 'n goeie plek het hulle harte wat hulle begin het. So ek dink hier vanaf hulle twee was net 'n goeie team om dit te begin.
So she's absolutely passionate about God, absolutely passionate about people, children, and then I think what also gives her this boost and the absolute energy to put into this foundation and make sure that it reaches what it needs to reach is that absolute inspiration and that talk, the very first conversation that was had between her and Uncle Mark in die binnenkamers, sê hulle. I think something happened that day where they both agreed this thing will be a success. And I think the passion behind what drives her was formed on that day. And nothing and no one will ever come in that way.
Do you think the Angel Foundation is doing good work in the community?
Yeah, I can just say, wow, Angel Foundation believe in Ubuntu, brotherly love. They want to involve everybody. And I know that they are doing an outstanding job to our community. We as school, we benefited a lot from the foundation. For instance, we've got school shoes, school uniform, sports equipment, sanitary pads to our learners. And I must just say,
to the foundation. How I miss that yearly Poiki festival of the foundation. I really miss that.
I think that question goes without saying, ma'am, that most definitely yes. From the first word go, they started with a bang and they took Heidedal, or the whole of Heidedal, by storm through their actions, and they didn't spoke a lot. They rather let their actions speak on behalf of what they were capable of doing. They are really kind-hearted and showcase the true sense and meaning of the word Ubuntu. Ubuntu means you are a person because of the next.
I can just stand there for every time they're giving us donations, aid credence, sanitary pads, giving us shoes. Every time when we need something, we can just knock on the door of Angel Foundation.
Last year we didn't have money for the Astros, so basically hockey wordt gespeeld op the Astros, especially when you go to a more senior league. So we didn't have money to pay for that facilities. Once again, ons gaan klop, ons 'n steady relationship. Ons gaan nie rondkyk vir iewers anders nie. Ons gaan na die steady relationship toe. And they gave us the money. So ons relationship is baie steady. Maar as jy sê, Jake, ek dink nou presies daaraan. Hulle is die mamma en ons is die kind. 'n Ma sal altyd 'n plan maak vir sy kinders. Hulle het nog nooit vir ons gesê nee nie. Ek praat van nog nooit vir ons gesê nee nie. Whether ons vir hulle help of nie help nie. So ek dink maar net ons relationship is man-kind relationship. Hulle is ons guardians, hulle is ons voogde. Ons het nog vir niemand anders geld gevra nie, want ons het geweet. Ons vra eers te wel en hulle gee ons slaag. Ons hoef nie nog verder te loop ons fondse soek nie. En vir die feit dat ons elke keer kan terug in hulle belê. Ek was al die MCB show van hulle. Ons het al vir hulle kaartjies verkoop. Ons het al golfdag vir hulle gehou, saam met hulle gehou. So ek dink maar net solank elkeen net vir mekaar hou, vir die kinders, met die ma, vir die ma, met die kinders daarvoor. Ons huis is in orde. Thank you so much.
Indeed, I do. Like I said, with all the kids they've supported, all the fundraising they've done, whether it was concerts, in the arts, or helping children get through day by day with school, and helping them with school attire and the pad drives that they've done. I think they've really done an outstanding job.
Okay, I know one of the projects was also the matric farewell, where they assisted young girls in terms of getting their attire, and also going the whole 9 yards in terms of the outfits and the cars and those ones. There was also another project where they assisted the old age home, Reenboog Old Age Home. I was present there when they were busy with a small renovation project by replacing all the doors. And you know, I said at that event that for you it might just look like a door, but even a door can restore dignity. Because if you look at the target audience at the Reenboog Old Age Home, it's frail, it's vulnerable, and it's our pensioners. And a lot of them are trapped in poverty. They do not have the finance to replace something like a door. But if you look at the benefits of having a door for such a person, so the value goes beyond that. There were other projects also in terms of, I know there was one where they were developing DJs, up and coming DJs. There were so many things. I'm trying to get a recollection now. And what I can also appreciate is the fact that they were not stagnant in one facet only. They really spoke to different people, because remember, when we assist community, we cannot just feed people. That is not the only need people has. There's nothing wrong in feeding, but what about the arts, the crafts? What about the matric farewell? What about people traveling? So those are the things that I have seen them being involved in the community.
Every single thing we do has a child at the center of it, at the heart of it. And I think sometimes that's something that our community forgets, is that everything we do is for the benefit of a child. And that still rings so true to me up until today.
The last question is, the foundation is turning 10 years old this year. Do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, I would say keep up the good work. It's great having knowing that we have an organization like the Angel Foundation doing these things in the community and helping the community, helping the schools, helping our girls. I would say keep up the good work.
Ik denk definitief dat de Angel Foundation een goede werk doet voor onze gemeenschap.
Congratulations, whatever they have been doing, well done to them.
And I believe that God will bless them with another 10 years so that they can keep on doing what they are doing. And that is my prayer, that they will be assisted by sponsors so that they can do what they do best.
Baie geluk. En mag die volgende 10 jaar net beter wees en mag hulle soveel sponsorships kry om hulle te dra dat hulle nie weet waar hulle einde is nie. Baie dankie.
Wow, 10 golden years. Wat ek net kan sê is elke doel wat jy het op aarde, elke droom wat jy het, daar is hobbels in die pad in. Dit gaan nie net smooth nie. So ek is bly dat Angel Foundation nog steeds stewig staan en glo in dat Angelique glo in die droom wat sy gehad het vir Angel Foundation. En wow, 10 jaar, dis kom ek sê 10 golden years. Dis regtig 'n lang pad wat hulle gekom het. Hulle opdraans en afdraans en dubbeltjies en alles en want dit was nie net 'n gelyke pad nie. Maar dat hulle vandag nog kan sterk staan, dit is regtig en ek dink vir die gemeenskap, hy dit dan self. Ons staan agter Angel Foundation en wat ek kan sê is, ek hoop vir die volgende 10 jaar gaan hulle nog sterker staan. En ek wens hulle net al die voorspoed toe vorentoe.